The All Dress Podcast with Conor McKenna, Eric Macramella, and Sean Starr starts now.
All right, welcome back. I just got a pop-up saying this meeting is
what was that?
Recorded, which I've never had before. Welcome to the show. This is All Dressed, the 18th episode, 19th.
Yeah.
Episode?
I think we're at 19.
19.
Who's recording this? My name is Pablo. Please, I don't live in Montreal. It's CSIS or the FBI is recording.
Well,
this.
since I grew this beard, every Zoom session is recorded by the FBI. Then they go through it. So you guys are quote affiants and/or witnesses. Enjoy it.
Thank you, Eric.
Yes.
Everybody's here. We showed up. Yes, we didn't.
Well done. Well done.
Hey, you guys know that the Tragically Hip have a new album?
What's it called?
Yes.
Montreal?
Oh.
Saskatoon?
I mean, let's just start with the coverage last night of this hockey game, this monster game, the first Leafs-Habs Saturday night playoff game in 42 years, presumably. Did you catch the analysis of the two members of the Tragically Hip that they went to right before the game started?
Yeah, one in a Canadiens jersey, one in a Leafs jersey.
Can I just say, imagine the NBA on TNT was airing a playoff game between the Clippers and the Lakers or something, and then right before the game started, they went to Snoop Dogg and Dr. Dre for them to break down what they thought. And then, of course, you have to ask them the most asinine question of all. Oh, you got a prediction? As somebody who does this for a living, there is nothing more lame than asking somebody for a prediction. It is the lamest of the lame things. And anyway, look, I love the Tragically Hip. Don't get me wrong. Great Canadian band. They can do no wrong, but I don't know why that hockey game had to serve as an infomercial for the Hip.
There's a place and time.
That now, and I'm sure that I may incur some wrath for this, but I just
No, you're not incurring any wrath. First of all, S&M behind Sean is very distracting. I don't understand what's going on with that. I know you and your spouse like it hot and heavy, but maybe now, and also in the kitchen's weird.
Yes.
But Conor, the whole broadcast is weird. You shouldn't try too hard. Leafs and Canadiens sell itself, and I agree. No other network would just engage in these silly antics. I don't want to. No. I saw them, and I went back to LDS. Then I listened to part of the broadcast in English, and it was so pro Leafs. What was it in the first game? At the end of the game, I don't know her name. She's new. It's unfortunately, they couldn't win it for Tavares. I'm like, are you joking? You have a duty as a national broadcaster to present an unbiased broadcast as best you can, and there's no effort made. So yeah, I went to LDS. That's local, and I get it. I'm just tired of that station.
And it's funny. It's what people were talking about once they got over the fact that the Canadiens got stomped. It was, did you listen to the game in English? And I go, yeah, I did. And did you notice the heavy bias towards Toronto? I certainly did. It's the second thing people were talking about today was how nauseating that broadcast made them feel. I swear to you, it was the second most popular topic this morning.
Yeah, and I it's normally I find it to be, it's kind of like everybody feels this way when it comes to Toronto in this country, and it's inevitable. The broadcast is out of Toronto, right? I mean, everybody who's on that broadcast is in Toronto, right? I at least I think so. So I think inevitably you're going to get a little bit of that, but yeah, it's and I mean, don't get me wrong. I'm not talking about Cuthbert or anything like that. It's just every sort of other component of it. It really is.
What I'll say though is that broadcast does have one star, and that's in Biesca. He is fantastic, and I thought he was more even keeled and gives both sides. And I find his analysis is refreshing. It's on point. It's got a really sharpened focus, and it's original. I really like him, but everybody else, it's a little bit much.
And I agree, because Bieksa, I think he strikes a good balance of injecting humor, taking shots at Elliot Friedman on the regular, and providing a modern player's take on what's going on the ice. I totally agree.
And Friedman needs to pick a hairstyle and stick with it. Okay, I know he had the coma with the bald spot. That was a problem. And then weird haircut and weird suits, and now long hair and no beard. Just pick something and go with it.
It says
the man with the beard.
Can you?
I've had it for over a year.
Is there, Eric, you live in Ontario. Has it been illegal to get haircuts for 15 months in Ontario? Is that still
I haven't had a haircut now. No, it's been against the law for about, I don't know, 2 or 3 months.
Okay.
Wow.
But there was a time you could get a haircut, right?
Yes. You mean a beard cut or a haircut?
No, a haircut.
Both.
Yeah. I mean, I got a haircut about 4 or 5 months ago. Yeah.
No, I find it weird that
The thing is, I want to enjoy my hair while I have it.
Well, we're not talking about your hair. We're talking about Elliot Friedman.
Oh, sorry. I thought you meant me. I was like, oh, that's weird because it's not that long.
No,
he's not leaving you anytime soon.
So I can't even tell. All right, guys. Look, game 2. This is, I believe, sort of what Shaun Starr, who picked the Leafs to win this series in 4 weeks. I think that's what he was sort of expecting to see. That is a very good NHL team against a not very good NHL team. Yeah. Lots of penalties for the Canadiens. There was the challenge as well, now heard around the world, and the walkie-talkie and all of that. Game 1, they looked pretty good. The beginning of game 2, they looked okay too. They hung with them for a while there, and then things got completely out of hand. Eric, how is it? Is this panic time? Is it just back to the drawing board? How are you feeling after?
I think, look, the Habs looked good, very good in the first. Things fell apart in the second when they drew all those minor penalties, and that really that caused an issue because the Leafs were able to capitalize on some of those power plays, and then they had the momentum, and then the Canadiens, they have difficulty coming back when they're down. I don't think it's panic time because that second period struck me as a unique circumstance we don't hope to see again. But we have to remember that the Canadiens, when they do play physical, and they did so under Julien, when they played physical, they drew a lot of penalties, as did Kotkaniemi. So if the Canadiens want to play physical, and they've said this repeatedly, we have to play physical as the Leafs, that's great. But Shaun, don't draw that many penalties.
Well, look what all the penalties were. They're all stick infractions. They're letting everything else go. Kotkaniemi got destroyed from behind, but they're calling the cross check when the stick disintegrated in his hand. They're calling that. They're calling the hooking. They're calling the slashing calls. They're calling the little sticky work. But the physical play, for the most part, is going by the wayside. And if we go back to game 1, Carey Price played very well. I don't know how well the team played. He played very well. And I was getting watching this game yesterday, Conor, and I'm thinking, wow, this is the version of the team that finished the regular season. Fundamental errors, getting hemmed into their own zone for significant periods. Did you guys notice the Chuck tendencies they had in the defensive zone? Touch the puck like hot potato off the glass. And what was Toronto doing? They were aggressive, keeping the puck in. Toronto's changing on the fly, asking Carey Price to bail you out. That was the really bad, concerning version of the Montreal Canadiens. And where in the heck did Josh Anderson go? The human wrecking ball from game 1. I didn't barely notice him at all last night, Conor. I don't know how you felt about 17's performance, but I mean, you couldn't ask for a difference in style of play or approach from game 1 to game 2.
Yeah, another thing about it is the adjustment factor. It was something I was thinking about between the games that we've seen. It kind of reminded me almost, if you look at the first 10 games of the season for the Canadiens, and then you look at the next 10 games of the season, the way it seemed like teams were able to adjust and sort of figure out what they were doing a little bit and make them look the way they looked yesterday, kind of a lumbering, slow team. And the adjustment, it seems to me, between games 1 and 2 made by the Leafs. And the adjustment game is something that's been concerning for Dominic Ducharme and this team for a while. I mean, the power play is a great example of this, right? They just don't seem like they're able to make adjustments, let alone on the fly, but even between games. But I think that's it. I think the Leafs saw a few things, were able to make the adjustments. We know that the game got out of hand there in a hurry after it looked like it was going to be okay. But lots of concerning signs, and things that we've seen before. I guess what I think ultimately of this is, though, I'm really in wait and see mode. I know there's a lot of doom and gloom. There's a lot of, I guess, because people were waiting for this to happen and
that's it
to happen. When it happens, it's like, you see, I was right. They suck. Yada yada yada. When I think it's important to remember that this is not something I think is necessarily going to carry over into the next game.
No, I don't think it will. I think that second period was a little bit unusual. But that being said, even in the first, the Leafs had far more quality scoring chances. But you talk about players who who kind of disappeared. And, we haven't seen a lot of Suzuki. He was good in the third period in the game one, but you didn't see him yesterday. The whole Gallagher line was non-existent to the point where Ducharme made the adjustment and dropped Danault down in the fourth as a centerman and moved KK to the top line instead of that line. My expectation is, and my hope, frankly, is that once you pair Suzuki with Caufield on his right side for game 3, which I hope is going to happen, drop Armia down to the last line. I think that's maybe when Suzuki may well wake up a little bit. He's got such great chemistry with him, but something has to be done because the Canadiens have 3 goals in 2 games.
Yeah.
And that's the issue they've had all season long, is scoring.
Well, that's it. If you get those guys out there, you got to keep them far away from the Matthews line. Because the Matthews line right now, I think are the best. They've been the best line in the Stanley Cup playoffs through 2 games. Yeah. They are, I think, at like 90% possession when they're on the ice. They're better than Bergeron, Pasternak, and Marchand. I mean, who are second and have played twice as much.
He's phenomenal. I love watching 34 play. He is such a special, unique player. And you saw how Sheldon Keefe used it with John Tavares. He was almost double shifting him as early as the first period. That was consistent all the way through. This guy just wants the puck. He's so confident every time he has it. And, Eric, you threw out the possibility of Caufield coming in for game 3. I mean, let's call it. He has to play. He has to play. I mean, you talk about the fact that they've scored barely any goals. Have you seen the stat going all the way back their last 30 games? They are the fewest amount of goals of any team that's played at least 25 playoff games. They're averaging 2.07 goals per game in their last 30 playoff games, man. I mean, that is – and we remember, Conor, we were talking about the New York Rangers series, how well Carey Price played. He's got good playoff numbers, but he gets no run support. It was the same thing that burned them against the New York Rangers, and history could be repeating itself. That's why he's got to play. He's got to play on Monday, Conor.
And the Flyers, remember, right? The Flyers last year, he had a .936 save percentage in the playoffs. I mean,
exactly.
And,
Caufield, to end the season when he played games, he was tied for second most goals on the team with 4. That there's something to be said. I haven't seen the same comfort level when Suzuki is paired with Armia. I don't see that chemistry. I don't see that comfort level. I understand the logic of Armia on the right side on the second line with Suzuki, but Suzuki psychologically is far more compatible and comfortable with Caufield that when you put Toffoli, Suzuki, and Caufield together on the line, assuming that's the line, I think that line can either do some damage or give the Leafs something else to think about. Canadiens have trouble scoring goals, and Caufield is the answer. If he doesn't play and the adjustment is not made, we talked about it before game 1. I think this would be a grave disappointment for the Canadiens.
It's the same approach going into game 3 as it is for me going into game. You're 100% right. Game 1 about you. What do you got to lose? What do you have to lose? Where's the hesitancy coming from? Why? You've had a chance to see this. You've had a chance to make it work. I like Yoel Armia's game. I think he's very good at creating turnovers, especially in the offensive zone. I don't think the Canadiens really, outside of Josh Anderson, have a player that could create turnovers the way Armia can with his size and his speed. But you need that elusiveness. You need that little X factor. Hide him on the power play somewhere. You see how he likes to find open ice, Caufield. It would be, I think, a misstep if they don't get him in on Monday.
So who makes the call on that? Does Marc Bergevin get to John Sedgwick on the walkie-talkie to call it down?
Right. Yeah.
Let's talk about that. The optics of that moment there. It's pretty obvious, right? I mean, I don't think you need to this. Maybe we can break it down like the Zapruder film here, but it looked like Marc Bergevin said, "That's goaltender interference. John, tell him to challenge." I mean, I guess we could be wrong, but it should
right.
Said, well, ultimately the call is made by me, but and knowing and speculating as we have in the past about just how much Marc Bergevin is in charge here and the extent to which he makes the decisions, it doesn't look good. A moment like that doesn't look good. They're down 3-1 in the game either way, right? I mean, whether you challenge that or not. But then the power play, they were out of the game basically from that moment onward. But what do you guys think, Shaun? You go ahead, man. Like, what do you make of the optics of what we
terrible? In a real life scenario today, got into an argument with a guy on the golf course today because it was my belief, like it is yours, Conor. I'm curious to hear what Eric has to say. That optically, Marc Bergevin made the call. he made the call and getting into an argument. Oh, he doesn't have any walkie-talkies communication. It's the video guy. It's the video guy. Why do you think it took so long? Why do you think it took so long? They obviously knew something was there. And at that part, I'm like, you're right. Because when I'm watching the game, I'm saying, why is this taking so long? Yeah. It's kind of obvious to me. It was a goal all day, every day. So what were they making this into a debate about? I don't know. Angles, Eric, that maybe the viewer at home like us, we don't have access to. But it doesn't look good. It doesn't look good again from Marc Bergevin reacting the way he did, pointing at the screen aggressively, seemed kind of adamant that he was convinced that it was goaltender interference. And I think it was him. I think he was partly responsible for getting that word, whether he communicated it directly or somebody heard him and got on the walkie-talkie and communicated down to Ducharme or Burroughs.
Desperation should never be your governing principle, and it has been for Marc Bergevin. When he's acted out of desperation, this team has not done well. 3 trades at the trade deadline, not great trades, made it difficult to maneuver the cap. That moment for me crystallized what we all know, and that Bergevin is in charge. Ducharme knows his English isn't very good. The only team he'll ever be able to be head coach of is the Montreal Canadiens, in my opinion. No other team will hire him, I think, for that reason. He's got to do what Bergevin says, and success in the playoffs is paramount for Ducharme and for Bergevin. Bergevin is calling the shots. I believe he called the shots on Caufield. Bergevin is old school. Look at his D. It's a great defensive core for 1982. And Ducharme, my sense is he'd like to go with some younger kids earlier on, but may have been overruled. That's just a guess. I'm just throwing it out there, but that's my sense that this is Bergevin says, I built this team, and this team, you're going to play the team that I built, not the team that you want to coach.
Yep. Well, also, and why I agree with you is Ducharme, Conor, and we played the clip on the TSN 690 morning show the morning after he said it, that everybody agreed with the core group, the top 12, everybody was on the same page. It's impossible to have 3 or 4 opinions and they're all in check right away off the hop.
One person found Barry Bonds not guilty.
BS.
You can't get people to agree like that.
BS.
It's impossible.
OJ
was innocent.
That was very concerning to me at the time.
Yeah.
I was surprised that more people weren't sort of wondering about that, because like I said at the time, whether they're telling the truth about that, which is like, oh, wow, that's not good, that nobody had a dissenting opinion, or if they're lying and saying that was the case, it's also weird and sort of hard to believe. It's a damned if you do, damned if you don't type situation. But everybody knows this, Eric. I'm sure that this is true for you as well, right? If you're involved in your professional life in like a big case, you're not just working it on your own, right? You have a big group of people that are there and talking and working things out, and not everybody's going to agree all the time. And if you do, then it's a really, really bad sign, isn't it?
You're absolutely right that there are instances where a group approach helps. And there's nothing wrong with discussing who you believe should play and who should sit. But in hockey, traditionally and typically, the coach gets deference on that. And if he doesn't get deference on that, then there may be an issue in the locker room with the players looking to their coach as being the ultimate authority figure during those games and not trusting that coach's judgment. I think Ducharme, but my sense with him is he's got good judgment. I think he's got a good feel for his players and knows who should play. And Bergevin is clouded by desperation. You can't allow him to make decisions.
Who was the last guy that disagreed with Marc Bergevin about PK Subban? Did they fire him?
Was it the goalie coach or the coach?
Matt something or other.
Oh, right.
He disagreed and was put to the door.
Are you talking the Subban trade? Sorry.
Yeah.
Okay. Remember, he was their analytics guy.
Yeah,
that's right.
That's right.
Mm-hmm.
And now I don't remember his name.
Man, Canadiens could really use a puck-moving defenseman, couldn't they?
Yeah, but that was the last time, talking about this, everybody in the same room agreeing on the lineup. No one wants to challenge. You always hear successful people tell you the key to success is hiring people smarter than me. It seems like from a very far distant perspective, it seems like everybody needs to follow in line, that there's the boss and there's everyone below the boss.
What is the line? I alone can fix it, Eric.
Right.
Yes.
The fact of this is, though, and I think it's important to point out, is that I talked about I use the word optics, right? Because ultimately that's what we have to go on. This is an organization that, because they play their cards so close to their chest, which That's their prerogative to do. But what that ultimately leads to is speculation. Now, we don't know, right? We don't know that it's true that Marc Bergevin is perhaps surrounded by a bunch of yes men, and that constructive dialogue is not something that's happening necessarily, but it looks that way.
Yeah.
And because they're so secretive and they play their cards so close to their chest, we can't know what the truth actually is, and probably never will. But I think it's a good point. I mean, Eric, you were all over that Stefan Waite thing at the time, but it's when we do actually, and it's unusual, it was so weird to hear from somebody who was inside. But when you actually, on the very, very rare occasion that you get an actual honest account of what it is that's going on behind the scenes there, behind the curtain, it sounds pretty dysfunctional. And when they don't have success on the ice, that sort of thing becomes a much bigger issue, at least in my view.
Does it ever work out, guys? Last call and you're desperate. Does it ever work out the next morning? The answer is no. And this is last call for Bergevin, and he's desperate. Yeah, at the time with Stefan when he was fired, I had pretty strong views that this to me was a manifestation of a deeply dysfunctional organization led by Bergevin, and I was concerned about it. But all that being said, the series against the Leafs is not lost. The Canadiens can still, I said the Leafs, Canadiens in 6, and I meant that because if this Canadiens team plays well on defense and can move that puck, transition nicely, and you have Caufield lineup, you got Kotkaniemi, who I still do like, and maybe Romanov comes back in, the Canadiens can beat the Leafs. Do you agree with this? Have they tested Jack Campbell yet? They have not tested Jack Campbell.
No,
they have not
scored. They don't score. They don't go to the middle. They've got nothing in the middle.
They don't push the middle. No, they don't push the middle.
They were lucky to win game 1, Eric. They were very lucky to win game 1. Austin Matthews at the crossbar. They were very, very lucky to win game 1.
I think that is basically kind of a fair way of looking at it. The other one is this. It's like, okay, the Canadiens in 6, which is my call too. But so what does that mean now? It means the Canadiens are going to win 4 of the next 5 games.
It's not going to happen.
Right? But that's once you start, it's always weird when you start thinking about it like that, you know?
Started.
Yeah. And I felt really good when they scored the first goal. I said, oh my God. They scored the first, and they have a really good win percentage when they score first. Like they're a good scoring team finishing team when they score first. So there was that, oh my God, I can't believe it. Are they maybe going to win 2 in a row in Toronto? Like, I legitimately did get my hopes up when Kotkaniemi broke the glass and made it 1-0.
Totally, we were celebrating. But if Suzuki gets Caufield, he can emerge and be, I think, an impact player again. And we've seen what Anderson can do. Jack Campbell is not a fundamentally strong goaltender. There's a reason why he's bounced around. The Canadiens need to push them. They'll need to test him with quality shots. This has been an issue. Jack Campbell cannot carry the Leafs against a good team, and we'll see if the Canadiens can be that good team in Game 3. I don't know.
But I think they're also a good enough team that they don't need. There's a reason
that's it.
That Jack Campbell is there, and it's because,
I mean, they are good, right? I mean, the Leafs, you watched them play last night. That's a good team.
Yeah, they're kind of good.
A good team.
they're deep. They're
deep.
Good.
So
you haven't even seen Galchenyuk yet.
We saw him yesterday.
Well, no, I mean,
he was easy to miss, but we saw him.
Yeah. It is. A lot of people, at least it seemed to me, there's a lot of angry people out there online as usual. More of them, it seemed, as the night went on last night. And what most of them seem to think is that it's the referee's fault that the Canadiens lost that game. There was, you know what the worst one was? I don't remember who it was now, but the official who couldn't get out of the way.
Yes.
It happened twice.
That was Lehkonen tried to clear behind the net. The ref didn't jump out of the way, and then they scored.
Yeah. So, I mean, look, I know that that's not good, but isn't it? I think of that as being like a sort of, as far as luck goes, it can swing one way or the other, right? Remember game 1, the Leafs put the puck over the glass 3 times in the same game?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That feels to me like the hockey gods sort of swinging a little bit one way or the other. But when it comes to biased officiating, anybody have any issues at all with the way?
No, and I think it's a great question. No, I have none. I have no issue there. I didn't see any bias. I thought the Canadiens were not disciplined with their sticks.
Yeah, I'm definitely not blaming the referees for the 5-1 loss here. Not even close. Did I think the referees had a good game? No, I thought they were horsebleed, to be honest with you. But I'm not gonna blame them for the 4 consecutive minors. I mean, Kotkaniemi cross-checked the guy in the stick shatter. It's an insta call. Same thing when a guy slashes another player and it breaks his stick in the process. It's an insta call. It's unavoidable, right? So the PK was all right. The Sandin goal was kind of nice, but I think it was just more another case in point, an illustration of when the Canadiens are bad, their weakest area is they just get caught in their own end. They have a hard time getting out. It's the weakest part of the team.
Mm-hmm.
And the Leafs are killers in that situation. I
so
mean,
fast.
The way they move the puck and
yeah. Like I think I like watching Mitch Marner play the game more than I like Austin Matthews. Like Matthews' shot, his release is electric. I think it's probably the best in the league today of any player. But I think watching Mitch Marner is just, I think he's like an artist when he's out there. His stride looks effortless. His vision is elite level. I mean, if you're a Maple Leaf fan, listen to this podcast.
I would say that
you're lucky.
Mitch Marner, while he's considered to be a really good player, I still think he's underrated as far as as a winger goes. I mean, he might be one of the best wingers, not the best winger in the league. He can just do so many things so well, and he's so smart out there, and it's so seamless, it's so effortless. I love to watch Marner as well, and something about him, unlike Matthews, can't keep his pants on. This guy is likable. Marner is a likable guy. You don't really cheer against him, even when he makes a list. You don't cheer against him.
You don't cheer for his dad, though.
No, I guess
not. Okay. Anything else? Nazem Kadri, you guys have any thoughts on this?
Wow.
We didn't talk about it before, but it did occur to me that it was something that I wanted to get to. Kadri gets an 8-game suspension from the Department of Player Safety. I haven't heard anything. Is he appealing it? I think he might be appealing it. That's a big number for playoff games.
Yeah.
So my thoughts on this, I will share with you now. I think that, first of all, I was shocked that he got 8 games. I mean, 8 games in the playoffs is wow. Second of all, I don't have a problem with it. And I don't mean to give you the impression that I have a problem with the number of games he got. The thing I have a problem with, or the thing I wonder about, is why it is that Nazem Kadri seems to me, as far as I know, and you guys can try to give me another example if you want, but is there any other player who is held accountable and is actually given a legitimate suspension number by the Department of Player Safety? I don't think there is. And I do genuinely wonder why it is that Nazem Kadri seems to be subject to a level of justice that other guys aren't.
When Tom Wilson pulled Panarin, Panarin down by the back of his hair and didn't get a suspension for that, just a fine. It speaks to what you're talking about. And that to me, I think is the ultimate issue. And the key issue is precedent. The league simply is so wildly inconsistent and almost arbitrary when it comes to how they dole out discipline. The whole idea behind discipline in any area on this planet, from the law downwards, is you put in place a punishment to discourage a certain type of behavior. The consequences need to be abundantly clear so that if you break a rule, then you pay a prescribed price. The NHL does it. The NFL gets it. The NHL does not get it. I'm fine with the 8-game suspension. Sean, I just don't get why. Well, I get it because it's a mess, but I don't get why the NHL is so reluctant to be consistent.
I don't get it. I don't get it. I'm not going to, take the angle. I don't know if you guys saw the tweet from Hakeem Aliou, who was in the news for a lot of really disturbing reasons for hazing and racial profiling on the National Hockey League. He authored a tweet at 4:18 yesterday afternoon saying Nazem Kadri's hit was a mistake, but let's be real. An 8-game suspension in the playoffs is absurd. We see many other players, including past offenders, receive much lesser punishment for the same conduct all the time. I wonder what the difference is. Thinking man emoji. So went with a race angle in the NHL, maybe looking at Nazem Kadri and his brown skin, thinking, well, let's sit him aside for 8 games. What makes?
Well, I don't know. I don't know if that's fair. Look, that's
what he tweeted.
I don't think that tweet is fair because Kadri's been a repeat offender in the playoffs as well. And the guy
what about Tom Wilson?
No, I agree. But I don't know if the issue is race. I think it's Conor. I think it's just NHL incompetence. What do you think? I'm curious.
I think that Hakeem Aliou is uniquely qualified to make that assessment. Personally, I'd take his word over mine, for example, as somebody who played hockey at such a high level and was drafted at a pretty high spot, I believe, by an NHL team as well. The story, by the way, of Hakeem Aliou, if you can ever read a book about hockey, Future Greats and Heartbreaks by Gare Joyce, outlines what Steve Downey in particular, Steve Downey, who didn't have any trouble making his way in the world of the National Hockey League. While Aliou sort of fell apart, Steve Downey was instrumental in the disgusting behavior visited upon Hakeem Aliou. Look, I do. I think it's at the very least, I think it's a fair question to ask. Hockey is a very, very white sport. When it comes to people who are in power in hockey, it is a profoundly white man place. And I don't think it's offside. I know it makes people uncomfortable, but I think that it is fair.
Mm-hmm.
Fair to ask that question at the very
well
least.
And also, like, just to wrap up my thought, it was like, if you go back to the goal that was reviewed in the Leafs Canadiens game 2 last night, did you notice Kyle Dubas, the Leafs general manager? There was a point when the review process was taking as long as it was. He looked confused at one point. It almost looked like he just threw his hands up, like, it could be disallowed. That's the general manager of the Toronto Maple Leafs, who to me looked completely and utterly lost when it came to predicting what the call was going to be. And the same thing has to be with Nazem Kadri. Like, where does 8 games come from? Where does it come from? Versus someone who does something maybe slightly worse, or maybe even not as bad, and maybe gets a stiff penalty. It's the track record of inconsistency makes this league still have a Bush League element to it. It's how I see it. It's unfathomable that they are still in this place when a league like the NFL, who's got so many warts on it, can actually do a good job of explaining discipline or penalties on the field or referee mistakes on a Monday following a slew of Sunday games.
Kadri's hit for me was more of a Rafi Torres type of hit, sort of the blindside hit that the league is trying to get out of, league is trying to get out of the game for a while. He's done this kind of thing before. I guess my reaction is, for those listening and not looking, I'm the one brown guy here. I have experienced certain things that have been unpleasant. Okay. I still find there are times where some people reflexively and conveniently rely upon race to explain something away, when in fact, I don't think it's the case here. And I guess what it does is, when you do that, it diminishes perhaps instances where race is truly an issue. My view here, and it's just mine, my view here is this was not at all driven by race. This was driven by a player who was so unlikable and such a repeat offender, the league has had enough.
Right. But I think you yourself just mentioned the name of Tom Wilson, for example. So you have another guy who's been a repeat offender of a repeated egregious offenses that doesn't seem to be subject to the same
standard,
right?
No, not at all.
I mean, I don't know. I hear.
Is it their level of impact that they have on their respective teams? Like, I don't know. Like, the Colorado Avalanche are owned by white people. The coach is white. The general manager is white. 99% of the players are all white.
The league is white.
I don't know. Exactly. So
it's the whitest league in North America.
Punish all the white guys by suspending the brown guy for.
But I guess if Tom Wilson had delivered the same hit that Kadri did, I suspect the consequence would have been different, because with the Panarin thing, it seemed like the league was kind of splitting hairs, but saying, look, he didn't really do anything egregious in the circumstance. It was just, these were hockey plays, whereas Kadri was just squarely like a blindside hit.
I think if Wilson did what Kadri did after the fiasco at the end of their season, I think he probably gets 12 games.
Maybe. Maybe.
But you know what? It's a great discussion to have. It is interesting.
Yeah, well, I'm glad I brought up the tweet. Good.
Yeah. I'm definitely again, like, I don't mean to say that I'm sure of it one way or the other. I have no idea, but I think it's a conversation worth having, and I'm certainly not trying to diminish the struggle or the consequences of racism in any way, shape, or form.
And I want to apologize if you think that was directed at you. It was not.
No,
I was just saying those who say it is, because you're saying it's an open question, which is, I think, the right way to frame it, and that's a great discussion to have. I don't know about you; it just feels like at times, just reflexively, people go to there really, really quickly.
Yeah, but it also doesn't necessarily mean they're wrong.
True.
Exactly.
True.
And speaking of racism, I've been watching the
Donald Trump. Oh, sorry.
Anyone?
Oh, yeah. No.
Holy.
Yeah.
I mean, this is truly. It's Barry Jenkins who did Moonlight. If Beale Street Could Talk, has won the Academy Award for Best Picture. And this is, I mean, as far as the way a TV show looks, maybe the best looking TV show I've ever seen.
What was the show? Sorry, I missed it because Shaun was chatting.
The Underground Railroad.
Okay, is that on Netflix? Is that on Prime? Is that on Crave? What is that on?
Amazon Prime. Yeah.
Okay.
They spare no expense here.
Yeah.
It's really good. All right, I will check it out.
look, I mean, this is, I'll tell you right away, not for the faint of heart.
Yeah, heavy show.
By any stretch of the imagination. I mean, it is incredibly disturbing at times, like nothing I think I've ever really seen before. So just add that caveat, not one for the whole family. That's for sure.
Hey, on the subject of TV shows, I got an email today. Master of None season 3 is out on Netflix.
Oh.
So that's finally out. Aziz Ansari's first 2 seasons of the show were spectacular. Can't wait to watch and dig in for season 3.
Please note, Aziz Ansari, I believe, does not appear in season 3 of.
I did not know that. Oh, wow. How is that possible?
I think he directed all of them.
Yeah.
But I believe it's Lena Waithe, who's going to be the show is focused on now, who played his.
You guys are so far ahead of me on TV.
Do you think that's deliberate on Ansari's part when he was caught up in the Me Too? I know his name was caught up and his name was in that. I don't know to what extent or whatever else, but when you said that, I did not know that. So I was wondering if there's a coincidence there, putting 2 and 2 together.
Well, I think that there may be a little bit of that. I also remember, I mean, because there hasn't been a season of this show in, I think, 4 years.
Yeah, right.
That he kind of said at the time of a season 3 that he was like, I don't feel like I have more stories to tell about, because this show is kind of about him. It is fairly autobiographical. And he had said a couple of years ago, he was just like, unless I need to experience more things in my life before I can do more seasons. So maybe that hasn't happened. I'm sure on that, to your point there, or question, I think that there's probably an element as well of.
Well, I'll miss his parents in the. His parents were great in the first 2 seasons.
It's a good show. It's a good show. Eric could get a kick out of it for sure. All right, top 4 for this week.
Yeah,
this is a good one. I'm excited.
Yeah, this was the easiest
top
one.
4 Montreal Expos.
Easy.
So I've got mine here.
All right.
How fast did you come to it? Pretty quick, right?
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
And this was one where it was hard, right? Because there were so many fun ones.
It wasn't hard for me at all. Off the top of my head, I just did. So I got Randy Johnson.
Oh, get out of here.
Okay, for $500, Connor, who was Randy Johnson when he was traded away to the Mariners?
Mark Langston.
Who joined him in that trade? 2 other pitchers. Gene Harris and Brian Holman.
I got Gene Harris.
Never even any of them.
The second one I never would have got.
So yeah, it was anyway. Grady Sizemore, Brandon Phillips, Randy Johnson. And no, I'm just kidding. It's all right. I'll go 4-1.
Yeah.
Orlando Cabrera, number 4.
Oh, you bastard!
Oh, interesting.
My number 4. Yeah.
Loved Orlando Cabrera. Style.
Really?
Hey, yeah.
Yes, me too.
Always had a smile, had a little style. I like when he had a little, bit of the hair coming out the sides of his hat. Loved OCAB. Jose Vidro is.
Your middle infield's covered.
I love middle.
As is your doping list, but go on.
Jose Vidro, yeah, was he?
Yeah. He was in the Mitchell report. Yeah.
Number 2's Vladimir Guerrero.
Yeah.
And number 1.
Come on, easy.
Pedro Martinez.
Yeah.
The best, still the greatest. The 2 greatest seasons of a Montreal athlete. I think number 1 is Pedro's Cy Young season. Over 300 strikeouts on a pretty bad team, but still, and didn't get to 20 wins, but still won the Cy Young, which was significant at the time. And Carey Price's Vezina and Hart Trophy winning season to me is right up there too.
Yeah.
I saw Pedro throw so many starts that season, went to the Big O and watched him. Remember that sound every time he got a strikeout?
The best.
The best.
Yeah, the best. So like you, Connor, I've got Cabrera at number 4. I'll start my list with my favorite shortstop, honorable mention to Spike Owen. And that's it, just Spike Owen. And 3 reasons why. He was such a nice guy. I started to cover the Expos in their final few years for the radio station. Such a nice guy. I'll pull a Larry David line here and say he's a man of high character. His significant other, I don't know if they're still married or not, but for a professional athlete, she wasn't necessarily a model. A man of high character, Orlando Cabrera. And the biggest reason he was one of my favorite Expos, when this guy was on a road trip, he never packed socks or undies. He just bought fresh ones for the entire trip. So if he went to New York City, they were playing at Shea and playing at Yankee Stadium for, let's say, 6 days. He'd go to wherever he bought them. He'd buy 6 pairs of socks, 6 pairs of undies, throw them in the garbage at the end of the road trip, and repeat the process. So Orlando Cabrera,
That strikes me as wildly inefficient, Sean. Wildly inefficient.
They paid these guys so much cash per diem, right? They'd leave. He'd show me. He'd get a white envelope filled with stacks with American bills. And then when they went to Puerto Rico, they sold them. They gave them per diem 2x, and so they pay them all in cash. They spend a month in Puerto Rico, and they give them all their money up front. So they had all of this per diem.
So
cash.
Cool. I had no clue.
Yeah.
Very cool.
Vladimir Guerrero, my favorite Montreal Expo. Coming in at number 3, my favorite recent Expo, I suppose I should say, not from my childhood, but definitely worth the price of admission. We've never seen a player like him wear an Expo uniform, I guess, for maybe our generation. Pedro Martinez coming in at number 2, only because Marquise Grissom is my all-time favorite Expo. I thought, as a small little white boy in Ville Saint Laurent, I thought I was Marquise Grissom. I thought I was super fast. I thought I could play center field. And then on top of that, again, it goes to show you that if you, it's impactful when you meet these players, because Cabrera had an impact on me, and so did Grissom. When I was a little boy, I used to go wait for autographs outside the players' parking lot. They'd come up the ramp, and Grissom was always so nice and would stay for as long as people wanted his autograph. And he was just my favorite player. He was so exciting. I'm a big fan of the stolen base, and at that time in that era, right, Ricky Henderson, Delano DeShields, Marquise Grissom. I mean, they were les voleurs début. Premier in the National League. So I love this list. I love this idea because it just brings back great memories of hopping on the Metro, destination Pi 9 to see my favorite players.
You wait at the ballpark. I waited at home. So my dad was the urologist at the Expos. I wait for him to bring home any players' kidney stones. That's what we would do. And one of them was my science fair project. My top 4 Expos, the ones who didn't make the cut, Joe Hesketh, Andy McGaffigan, and Junior Noboa, all fantastic players.
Junior Noboa.
This was a tough. He batted 400 in the minors in AAA. Number 4 on my list. He's on my list because, see, I'm a bit older than you guys, so my names might be a little bit more dated, except for one of them. But he came to define what it meant to cheat and be successful in baseball, and that's Dennis Martinez. No one scuffed the ball like him. Man, that perfect game against the Dodgers when Gwynn hit that ball to center field. See that ball go from left to right on your screen? That's called a scuff ball. I love that. So
I've never heard that.
Number 3, the other Martinez, not Dennis, not Ramon, but Pedro. I thought Pedro would not be as good as his brother when he came out. We traded in Montreal for DeShields, playing out of the bullpen to start off. Felipe Alou changed the course of his career. And Pedro Martinez was the most dominant pitcher I've seen in my entire life. And he did so against a National League that was on PEDs effectively. And this guy, I assume, was clean. And he was incredibly effective and historically great. Number 2.
And remember at the time, at the time, he was a notorious, he was a headhunter reputation. He had a headhunter reputation, Pedro Martinez.
Remember, he was throwing a no-hitter against the Reds?
Right away, I'll never. And was it Reggie Sanders who charged the mound?
Sanders charged the mound.
Yeah. Yep, on a no-hitter in the 9th inning. What are you doing, you bobo?
It's so funny because when my buddies and I get together, we talk Expos. We can talk all night, because there's just so many great, colorful personalities. And because it's an individual sport player on a team, really highlight all the personalities. Number 2 on my list, number 33, the guy who loved the number 3 was Larry Walker. I loved him because when he won Baseball America or Baseball, the USA Today Baseball Weekly Player of the Year, whatever it was, that award was found in his closet broken. Most of his awards were in his closet broken. He couldn't care less, but this guy was so incredibly talented. And I love when he lost Athlete of the Year to Villeneuve. He said, I got beat by a machine. He nailed it. And number 1 on my list, this is the age difference here, Tim Raines. Tim Raines, to me, was a beautiful ball player. You talk about the stolen base. He could do everything, hit for power, hit for average, steal bases, had no arm, but just such an exciting player to watch. And for Expos fans from my generation, he came to define the Expos. Andre Dawson is not on my list because the 2 times I've met him, he's been rude to me. I loved him. So he's off my list, but Tim Raines is number 1.
And he also left the bases loaded around Blue Monday.
That's right.
Hey, do you think Andre Dawson made an honest effort to catch that Gary Carter double?
I always wonder that. And I think so, because Andre Dawson, you've met him, Conor. The last time I chatted with him was when you were in the room at that Expos Cromartie thing. And Dawson is all about the money. He's all about winning. And I don't think he could have cared less it was Gary Carter. I think he wanted to catch that ball, but his knees said no. You?
Well, that's why he went in as a Cub, right? He wanted that money. He wanted that autograph. He wanted that autograph money when you go and you sign at these shows, right?
Can you blame him?
No. But it's the way you say it.
In that sense.
Yeah. I was at Wrigley Field a couple of years ago, and he was signing autographs. It was like $25 an autograph. And I just talked to him like a month before with Cromartie, and he acted like he didn't know me, which is fine. I introduced myself. He was incredibly rude to me. This was the second time he was rude. I understand he gets a lot of requests, but it's the way that you tell someone off, right?
Mm-hmm.
He's an extremely serious guy, but
in
the Hall of Fame, and we love Andre Dawson, obviously.
Yeah, I'll tell you, when I used to wait for autographs outside their parking lot, I'll never forget this image. Carlos Perez was still on the Expos.
Oh, I loved him.
Old school pitcher. You've maybe seen in top tens. He blew a tantrum, blowing up a Gatorade bottle exactly with his bat, right? So this was before then. And so his driver's in a Bronco. So he pulls up, and the driver said, no. And you hear some of the guy in the background, clearly seated in the back. You can't see, it's all tinted out. You go, whoa. And then the tinted window rolls down. There's Carlos Perez with 4 honeys, 2 on each arm. He's wearing just a vest with no shirt underneath. He's wearing a vest you would wear to like a wedding or something. Awesome. He's wearing a vest, bare skin. I don't know. It looked to me at the time, I'm like 13 or 14. He looked like Mr. T. He had 20 pounds of gold around his neck, 2 honeys on each arm, and no shirt. I'm like, baseball is where I need to be all the time.
Pants?
Tell. Maybe there was a 5th girl. I don't know.
Now, Carlos Perez is still alive, right? His brother passed away, correct?
That I don't know.
Pascual Perez was shot and killed, right?
Correct. He's passed.
Carlos Perez is still alive, right? I think so. Anyway.
As far as I know.
That's a real pick me up. Sorry, guys.
We should have just ended it, Carlos.
And that's the feel good moment of the show.
Nobody tell Uguas Urbina that he didn't make it.
Who's out of prison? You looked that up off
Too
the
soon,
air, right?
No, but isn't he?
He only got 7 years.
Right.
Now, is he still alive too?
I think so.
I thought he was killed. Yeah, I thought he was shot and killed.
Revenga, Conor, revenga.
All right, let's end it there. Thanks for hanging out with us again today. We'll be back very, very soon, and enjoy whatever day it is that you're listening to us. Cheers.